Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're welcoming back Nick Murray from Bitewing Games. Bitewing's newest offering, Gazebo and Gingham, two travel-friendly board games, is currently available on Kickstarter. Nick, welcome back to the binge. How you doing, my friend?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me again, James.
It is great having you back. We were just saying before we went on air, I always like to go back and check what it seems like just like not too long ago I had him on the podcast. It was episode 111. We're at episode 346, so there's been quite some time that is this passed between when we chatted last, which means there's a ton of stuff to catch up on because we all know how fast this industry is moving. But for those who don't know who you are and you and your partner, can you give us just kind of a quick overview of who you guys are, who Bitewing is?
Yeah, so Bitewing Games, we're an indie publisher that started around the time that you first interviewed us a few years ago. But our company's run by myself and Kyle, my friend. We're both dentists. We actually went to the same undergrad doing pre-dental and then the same dental school. And we got into board games at dental school. And then eventually we started making our own games and then decided we want to start a publishing company kind of as a side gig, which kind of blew up into its own business at this point. So it's been a fun journey, but yeah, we've been cranking out games for the past few years and having a blast doing it. So
That's awesome. No, the name Bitewing, just for people that don't know, that's like that little thing that you put in your mouth that has like the X-ray on it or something, like the X-ray film, is it? Or
yeah, it's actually quite unpleasant to get a Bitewing X-ray taken because it's like a rectangular kind of sharp,
yeah, I hate it.
rectangle they put in your mouth, and yeah, you use it to take X-rays. Usually at your checkup, your cleaning, right? Usually we do it once a year, but we liked the idea of this whole company started by two dentists. That's kind of what makes us unique in the industry, and so leaning into that with the name Bitewing, it just felt like a nice name for a publishing company. And if you look at our website, we talk about how the Bitewing allows you to view a tooth in a different way than if we're just looking in the mouth with the naked eye, and gives you a different perspective. And so we're hoping to bring our own unique perspective to the industry and our own style of games, and really we love board games. We still have our day jobs of dentistry, but we love making games, we love playing games, and that's really why we're here. So
that's amazing. Like usually you see like people that are in certain industries that are kind of looking for board games as an escape, but you guys are fairly, like, how long have you been doing dentistry then for?
I graduated in 2020. Kyle was the year before that. So, yeah, it's funny. It's like right when I started my career in dentistry, I
Yeah.
also started this business, which definitely wasn't the game plan when I was going through all that schooling. But here we are, and yeah, it's fun. It's on one hand, I get to help patients and fix teeth and that kind of thing, but on the other hand, I get to be really creative and help a designer, bring their game to life and work with artists to direct the artwork and then sell this game to people and find games that we love that we want to bring to life. So very different styles of work, but it's fun variety.
It's good to kind of see it kind of growing the two sides at the same time though, right? Like usually I'll talk to people that have kind of are further along in their career and it's like, oh my God, I need an escape. I need something to kind of break the monotony. But you're kind of like balancing both as you kind of chart both these kind of career paths, which is kind of cool to see. And then to tie Bitewing in, like part of the dentistry into the actual name of the company, I think is quite clever. Do you find it's something where you're working on the people's teeth, but in your head you got game ideas kind of spinning, or?
I mean, occasionally, yeah, between seeing patients, especially if the schedule's rather slow and I
Yeah.
have I have time to kill between seeing patients, then I'm usually working on Bitewing stuff at the dental office, responding to emails or directing artwork and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, once you've done enough fillings or crowns, it's kind of easy to let your mind wander because you've done hundreds of this exact same procedure, and
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to be I guess multitasking a little bit, but
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
got to be careful though. You don't want to get too lost when you're drilling in somebody's mouth. So
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, listen, any of his patients are listening to this podcast. Trust me,
yeah,
he's paying attention. Don't worry,
yeah.
he's not daydreaming while he's working on your teeth. And then you and Marie, you and Kyle both are in different states, right? So how do
Mhm.
you kind of manage? Is it like through Zoom? Like I gotta imagine is like how do you manage this between the two of you? You got two full-time careers, yet you're not even in the same state.
Yeah, I mean we have a Discord channel where we're talking every day, and you know I text him at times too. Sometimes we do phone calls, but the nice thing is I run the day-to-day stuff
Mm,
mostly, and the main times when I reel Kyle in is when we're looking at artwork and thinking like, do we like this? Are there things we want to change? Or when we're considering a new game to publish, or you know how do we market this game, like brainstorming ideas, things like that. And then on Kyle's end, he does a lot of the visual marketing for us, so he
mm,
makes, you know, he runs our YouTube channel mainly, so he makes how to play videos. He takes photography of our games. He runs the Facebook ads and a lot of that kind of thing. So we operate independently in those kind of jobs for the most part,
mm-hmm.
but you know, collaborate on the big decisions and stuff like that.
But a
So
true division of labor there, it sounds like, though, right? Where you've kind of
mhm.
picked like who's going to do kind of focus on the creative and so forth, the other person on the operations side,
Yeah.
and then I know we're going to get into these games in a second because I know we're going to name drop here in a second, right? But like in terms of licensing, is that the path you guys? Just imagine with your full time careers, is that the path you guys are going to take going forward, like signing other designers, or will there be we kind of interweave in there your own personal designs at some point, or like how is that model going to look going forward?
Yeah, I'm sure as you know, designing your own game is a very different beast from publishing a
Yeah.
game from another designer, right? And there's so much effort and time and grind that goes into designing and developing your own game. And there's a couple reasons why we're set up the way we are. One reason is I tried designing, especially during dental school, and there's definitely a lot of enjoyable aspects to it. There's that satisfaction of creating something out of nothing,
Yeah.
and bringing your idea to life. But there's also that grind of play testing and developing and making other people play a game that is broken and it sucks, and you're trying to find the little special nugget in there, and then but then you're often hitting these creative walls along the way.
Yeah.
And I found that actually reaching out to designers whose games I are published and I play and love, reaching out to those designers and knowing that their style fits my taste, and then working with them on a new project or a new game,
Mm-hmm.
and letting them deal with the, you know, the difficult or frustrating development end of it, and then bringing me an awesome game, and then we figure out how do we bring this to life and make it the best it can be, is for my taste, that's my favorite part of the whole process, is kind of the publisher end of it.
Sure.
And so our time is limited, right? So maybe eventually, if I retire from dentistry and I have more time on my hands, I might get back into design. But right now, we're very happy working with designers who kind of align with our tastes and our interests, and bringing their games to life.
No, it's cool. And then how did like in terms of finding? So like we're gonna talk about, in this series you have Reiner Knizia, who you've also already published some of his games already.
Mhm.
How did you kind of establish some of these relationships, right? Because there's one thing of signing just a game designer into your portfolio and launching a game. There's another going and signing someone prolific like this, right? How did that
Yeah.
come about, and how did you guys kind of come together and connect?
Um, Well, I have a buddy from high school who he once said something. I think he said it multiple times before, but it's always stuck with me. And it was in regard to dating. And he said, you know, it's better to say I can't believe I did that than I wish I would have tried.
Mm,
And that's kind of been for board games. That's kind of been my philosophy. And maybe that's just because this is a side gig, and the stakes aren't super high. You know, I'm feeding my family and paying the bills and stuff with my main job.
yeah.
But in board games, it's like, hey, this designer's really famous. They have no clue who I am, but I'd love to work with them, and I think we could, you know, make some really special games and projects together. So just reaching out to people out of the blue, you know, cold email or cold call, that kind of thing has actually worked out really well for us over the years. So that's what we did with Reiner Knizia. I just emailed him out of the blue and was like, hey, we're two dentists looking to start a publishing company. This was before we had made anything.
Yeah.
And we love your style of game. Would you like to make some casual card games with us? And that was our first project that you interviewed with
Yeah.
me about that first time. And a similar thing with Ryan Courtney, seeing him tweet about a hiking game that he was working on several years back. And at the time, he was working with Capstone. He had made Pipeline and Curious Cargo. And I figured, you know what? The hiking theme really interests me. I like Ryan's style of game. Why not just message him and see if there's a publisher already attached to this game? And it turns out there wasn't. And he agreed to work with us, even though we were relatively new at the point. So yeah, sometimes just trying things, even if you get a lot of rejection or no response at all, sometimes it leads to some really great successes and some really great collaborations. And that's how the ball got rolling for us. And then from there, just I don't know, just trying to be professional, trying to treat designers well, and do right by their games. And if you work well with people and you're nice to people, generally they want to work with you again, right? Because a lot of people in this industry maybe don't know how to run a business as well. They're not as organized, and that can frustrate designers.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're not as professional or kind to work with, and so and that's true for any industry, right? And if you find people that like, these people are easy to work with, they do a good job, then it's like, yeah, I want to keep working with them. And I think that's, I haven't done anything remarkable, I'd say, but I think that's gone a long ways to establishing these relationships for us.
My gut says that there must have been at least one rejection you guys have had. Like, did you have any rejections along the way where people are like, you know what, guys, maybe wait till you've proven yourself before I want to take a chance on you? Or did you get any of that at all? Or was it kind of all roses and lollipops?
I think it's mostly just you don't get a response at all.
Yeah.
Like I've emailed other designers before, or I've reached out to other creators even, or like publishers, and been like, hey, do you want to work together on this kind of project? And usually you just don't hear back.
Yeah.
Either they're too busy, or they look into your credentials and they're like, it's just not worth, it's too much effort to respond to everybody, and it's hard to reject people too. So I think most of the time when you try something like that, especially with an email, it's very easy to just shove it under the rug or ignore it, right? And even if somebody came back and they're like, nah, it's not going to work, like, it's not the end of the world. You move on and find other opportunities. So
I guess the key here is at least take the chance, or at least try, right? Like, so your example of, I think it was Trailblazers you were talking about. Most people look at that and would just assume this already been signed, right? Oh, he's always working with somebody, right? But you guys said, well, I'll reach out. You never know.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not working with anybody, right? And, just to kind of have that kind of connect, right? And sometimes right place, right time. Sometimes these designers as well want to have more eggs in more baskets. Right. Yeah. And you might say, well, geez, they're working with such and such a publisher. They're probably locked in with that guy. Well, no, that publisher is going to launch one game, maybe a year of theirs. And if they've got 6, 7, 8, 10 designs, they need to get lots of publishers pump their games out if they want to have more than one game coming out a year. Right. So often I think people can assume that things are going to be more difficult than they are to connect with people in this industry, but it's a very gracious industry, I'd say. A lot of people are willing to pay it forward, offer their time, and as you said, at least it's not the other way, which is kind of that negative kind of response coming back. Sometimes better just to have the silence and then move on to the next, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it's no harm done. I get it. And some big designers, they work with humongous publishers. Like we're better established now, but we still don't have the reach of your international publishers who can get into the very niche stores of Europe and Asia and things like that, and retailers. And so I get it. Sometimes designers or people want to work with a bigger fish in the industry.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get a lucky break and we get to work with somebody who has a big fan base, and we love their games and make something special. So
sometimes those bigger fish as well, the bigger the fish, the more control you're giving up, right? And if you're a designer and you want to have some involvement, most of the smaller publishers want you to be involved,
Hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of the criteria of why they're probably choosing you, is because
Hmm.
they know that you're going to come with your own fan base. You're going to bring in some of your development videos and kind of vlogs you've been doing along the whole process, and they know that they can leverage that as part of the marketing.
Hmm.
And they see you as a resource, right? Versus maybe some of these larger ones that just want to kind of take it from here and kind of push you off to the side. So there's benefits, I think, to going to some of the smaller guys as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, all the designers we've worked with, we love to keep them involved, and they've all made great contributions to
Yeah.
the process. I show them artwork along the way. I bounce ideas off of them for the name of the game or the components and how should we make the components and how should we market it. And they've all made major contributions. And there are at times differences of opinion, and
Yep.
that could be a little difficult to work through when we're the ones that have to sell the game and we're putting our money on the line, but they're the ones who have a creative vision and they want they want it another way. But overall, it's definitely been worthwhile keeping the designers involved. And yeah, I'm glad to have that connection because these people become my friends as well in the industry and yeah, and it leads to more projects too, and it's definitely been a great experience for me.
How do you handle that? So, I give you my thoughts on how I've handled that, but how do you guys handle that when you have that difference of opinion? Like, what's the resolution?
Yeah, I mean, it helps to have a contract in place
Yeah.
that clearly defines the boundaries, because then you just can refer back to the contract and be like, look, this is the person who gets to make this ultimate decision, and everybody else has to be happy with it, whether it's the designer or the publisher, right? And if you don't have that, then it gets more difficult. So you learn to make better contracts and agreements as time goes on. But yeah, when there is a difference of opinion, I think just listening and telling them like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. Here's where we're coming from. Usually you can get to a decent enough resolution.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes it ultimately leads to, maybe we're not a good fit for each other to work on future projects, but we're going to make the most of this current one.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully it doesn't end up that bad. But yeah, that's part of the when you're doing something creative. And there's money on the line, then yeah, feelings can easily get involved, and you just have to be very very tactful, I think, with your wording, very understanding, and show that you're a good, you're listening and you understand, but sometimes you have to stand your ground too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of the two C's, right? It's contract and conversation.
Mm,
Those are the two things I usually focus on. And for me, it's that upfront conversation to say, look, here's how this relationship is going to be structured, and we need to be in agreement even to move forward, like, and then we'll put
mhm,
together a contract, and we're going to make sure we ratify this in an official contract between the two of us. But we need to have an understanding that I'm the publisher, and ultimately it's going to be my call. I'm
mhm.
going to try to involve you as much as possible. I'm going to try to employ as much of your vision as possible. But there's going to be areas where we're just going to have to go in a certain direction, and you're just going to have to trust that we're doing what we think is the right thing for the commercialization of this project. If you
Mhm.
feel that that's not going to work for you, no worries, but we're probably not the right publisher for you, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the
Mhm.
conversation I usually start with, right? So
Yeah.
that later on, if you do have those difficult conversations, you've already kind of softened the dough, so to speak, right? And so it's not a
Yeah.
surprise, and it's like, okay, yeah, I know we kind of talked about this before, and ready to go. Thankfully, knock on wood, I haven't really had any issues, and usually things get resolved.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I like the pushback sometimes too, where I'll say, here's what I want to do, and then they'll push back, and then you go back and forth, and it's like, you know what,
Hmm.
I actually like their idea better. I'm going to go
Yeah.
with that one. That one actually makes more sense, right? So
Hmm.
having that kind of flexibility and courage and trust amongst each other to be able to have that kind of collaborative conversation, all having the same goal, which is we want to get this game to marketplace and we want it to be successful,
Hmm.
hopefully serves the needs of everyone, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, you get a similar thing in dentistry actually, where, and I feel like it's even higher stakes, where somebody comes in and they're like, "I want dentures, I want you to pull my teeth and give me dentures," and it's like, "Okay, we can do that," and yeah, it's a permanent life change, and it's going to be obviously expensive to do all this surgery and make the dentures and stuff, but like setting the expectations up front is so vital. Of like, hey. Here's everything that patients hate about dentures. Here's what you have to expect, because if you have that conversation after everything's been done, it's a
yeah.
much harder conversation to have. So
Yeah, totally. Now with
yeah,
these two games, Gazebo and Gingham, I'm going to show them on screen right here. First of all, congrats on the funding. I'm going to put this in Canadian
nice.
dollars. It's the only way I can see it, but just about 192,000 on a goal of about 21,000 Canadian. So nice success for a campaign like this. You still got 57 hours to go, so people have another kind of 2 days here to kind of finalize their pledges. You have the back end hockey stick, so obviously this number is going to grow substantially in the last 48 hours. But where did the kind of idea come from to do this kind of 2-in-1, for lack of a better word, camping or picnic kind of line of games?
Yeah, I mean, for better or worse, we're kind of in a habit of launching multiple games at once. That started with our very first Kickstarter, the casual card games, and there's some good reasons to that. There are definitely pros and cons to it. Launching multiple games together, people have to decide, do I want one game or multiple games? They have to investigate multiple games, and I'm sure you get some drop off where people decide, you know what, I only wanted one of these games. I don't want the whole bundle, and I'll just wait till retail, and then you lose out on that backer, right? So there are some things to consider. But on the other end, if it's a cheaper game like a $20 or a $40 game, then it makes the shipping costs and just the concept of I'm pre-ordering this game months and months in advance kind of
Yeah.
an easier pill to swallow, I think, when you're getting more value out of that same, I guess, baseline cost for backers. It also, as dentists with day jobs, it's easier for us to run less projects. Any single project is going to eat up a lot of time, a lot of
Yeah.
attention, a lot of energy. And so kind of combining them saves us a lot of resources that way too. But for this particular project, it was really born out of our desire to create some more focused lines of games that people can come to and know what to expect exactly from that line or brand of games. Because up to this point, we've largely been chasing a huge variety of games and genres and projects, and the box size and the price and the gameplay has kind of been all over the place because we basically make games that excite us and are fun to play. So it's on that end, it's really fun. But from a business angle, it makes it a little harder for customers to know exactly what to expect from us.
Mm-hmm.
But Trailblazers was our second and still one of our most popular games to this day.
It's a great game.
It was our second, yeah, thank you. It was our second Kickstarter project, and we ended up doing 5 different versions of it. And one of the most popular versions has been the Travel Edition, which kind of hits that sweet spot as far as the size, and it comes in a clamshell case with a carabiner, and it's portable. And that one sold really well for us. And we found, nobody else is doing. There are travel friendly styles of games out there, but nobody else is doing this like clamshell case angle in the industry. And the question became, what if we could do that with more games, or what if we could do that with like a medium sized game that we kind of compress down to a smaller overall size, but then put in like a very travel friendly package. And so that's kind of how this travel line was born, and we wanted to kick it off with a couple of games and continue it with more games. So that's how you have Gazebo and Gingham. They're both $39 medium size, medium weight games, but they're compact and they're very easy to transport. And that's where people who back this Kickstarter, they get the clamshell case for free, because we considered packaging this into the game itself. But unlike the smaller Trailblazers Travel Edition, those bigger cases are obviously, they add more to the production cost, right?
Yeah.
And so then the question becomes, do we sell a retail version that's just more affordable and lowers the barrier to entry, or do we force everybody to get the case only version that's more expensive? So we're kind of straddling the fence there, and we have the main games do not include the case, especially
Okay.
for retail. But for Kickstarter backers and the way we've marketed it, it's like if you back it on Kickstarter, you just get the case for free, because that really helps communicate and highlight like, yeah, these are very portable games.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I see a colleague of ours, Andrew Stiles, is chiming in on the chat here, talking about how travel-friendly games are on trend, and people are on the go. Got a lot of people doing staycations, right? And
Yeah.
and the way you can kind of take a number of games with you without having to pack big boxes is always a preferred thing, right? Something you can pull to a picnic, camping, so forth. What I want to say to the listeners is one of the benefits of combining two games like this that you kind of hit on is that it's very expensive to market for Kickstarter, right?
Mm.
And so when you
Yeah.
have a low retail game, so a game that's like $40,
Mhm.
if your acquisition cost is like $17 US, which is the average acquisition cost when you do marketing to get a Kickstarter pledge, you're chewing up a lot of the profitability of that product, and quite frankly, it's tough to stay in the black, right? So if you can
Mhm.
take marketing dollars, shipping dollars, and things like that, and spread it across a couple games,
Mhm.
now it makes the economics of this thing make sense, right?
Yeah, and part of the reason is we're partnered with Allplay, who does a very similar thing.
Mm,
Actually, they just launched a pretty wild Kickstarter today where it has like 9 games
I saw that, yeah.
that you can buy all at once, and those were meant to be direct to retail only, but obviously with the tariffs and things, it helps to get people to help pre-order and cover some of those fees that we are now paying to just ship them import them into the U.S.
Yeah,
Right? But with Allplay and with us, because we're partnered with them, we're on their website. We sell our games through their web store, and they help sell our games to retailers. We have a flat rate shipping fee of $4 in the U.S. or
mm,
$9 in Canada and UK and Europe and such. And so people can order as many games as they want from us and from Allplay and Allplay partners, and the shipping price stays the same. And that also lends itself to being beneficial for launching multiple games into Kickstarter, because most people, if you're a regular backer on Kickstarter, you're used to paying maybe $12 to $20 shipping in the
yeah,
US for a single game, whereas we're shipping multiple games for $4 flat rate, which is pretty good. Obviously we subsidize some of that, right? But
sure,
yeah, I mean it's just a certain model that works for us. And the nice thing is, if assuming the Kickstarter funds well enough, which this one has, then we can make extra copies of the game and then get them into distribution and in retail and such. And so it helps. Kickstarter isn't the only source of income and funding for these games. It's just the starting point for
sure.
us. So.
How did that relationship come about with All Play?
Exact same way that it happened with Kinesia. I emailed Allplay out of the blue, and they had no kind of partner program. They were only selling and distributing their own games at that point. This was a few years ago, but I noticed that unlike most publishers, they have their own warehousing, they do their own fulfillment, they do their own pledge manager. Like everything was in house and it was run very smoothly. I backed
Mm,
their projects, and like there's such a quick turnaround from funding to delivery. It's like 6 months,
yeah, it's
and
pretty
it's
good.
like, man, these guys are running a well-oiled machine. And at that time, like most publishers, we were working with just a third party fulfillment service, and we were working with a third party pledge manager, and just working with all these different companies can be a headache, right? And
Yeah,
and maybe they don't do everything exactly like you hope they do. And I just noticed, like, man, it would be so nice if a company like Allplay was handling our fulfillment and our warehousing and our distribution, because they have their stuff together, right? And they
yeah,
they have a good web store. And so I just emailed them and said, like, hey, I feel like we're good at making games, but we don't have any kind of capability or expertise or time or whatever to do the rest of it. Once the games are ready at the factory to go out, it just becomes such a headache for us to deal with at that point. And you guys seem to have your stuff together. Are you interested in potentially, doing this end of it for us? And I just got lucky essentially. They were like, what, we just hired some new people on. We have more bandwidth for more stuff. And they're the type of company who's very entrepreneurial minded,
yeah,
where they're always looking for ways to improve and expand their business and grow and become more efficient. And they're like, sure, why not? Let's try it out. So we were the guinea pigs for their partnership program. And they brought our games into their warehouse, and they started, they very quickly set up a pledge manager for us, because we were about ready to fulfill Zuvatis at the time.
hmm,
And they got that up and running and kind of figured out a system. And they realized, on their end, it would be beneficial if they brought on more partners, because then they can pitch themselves as sort of a mini distributor to
yeah,
retailers. And, when people back a Kickstarter from, say, any other company under their umbrella, then they go through the pledge manager, then they can very conveniently add on one of our games or one of Allplay's games, and it all ships in the same package. And so it really benefits everybody to have that kind of system in
sure,
place,
yeah,
with Allplay being kind of the taking the charge and spearheading all of that. So it's been great for companies like us who, you know, take care of patients and see and do dental work during the daytime and just have time to make the games and market it and try to sell it at night. So
With Gazebo and Gingham, can you give us a quick overview for those who haven't heard of these games, what these games are about?
yeah, so the main thing, obviously, they're travel friendly portable games. They both play in 30 minutes for 2 to 4 players. And they're the idea of our travel line, which these two games are officially kicking off, is that they're very easy to get to the table. So not only are they easy to transport, but it's just easy to teach people. It's a very quick teach, and then you play it and you're done in 30 minutes. But with Gazebo, this is, we've worked a lot with Reiner Knizia, and this is a domino game where with area control elements to it, and you're kind of establishing these garden nooks of water or flowers or shrubs, and as you grow these areas, you can place your gazebos on them, and as you connect your regions or your nooks to patios, you can claim those with your gazebos as well. And it's just a race to put out all your gazebos first. So it's a very simple, elegant domino game with a lot of interaction on a shared board. And then with Gingham, this is from Robert Hovakimian, who also designed Bebop and Shuffle and Swing. And he's done more stuff like Merchants of Andromeda and Moon Rollers as well. So he's very new to the scene from a customer or gamer perspective, but he's been doing a lot of stuff lately. And Gingham is a game where basically you are ants who have discovered this abandoned picnic blanket with all these sweets on it, and now you're racing to claim the sweets by making connections between matching sweets and stockpiling them and stealing them away. And also a very interactive game, but it's fun that we were able to actually use like a fabric cloth board and make it look like a picnic blanket,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're both very interactive games for people who like simple rules, but good strategic depth and a lot of interaction. That's kind of where these are existing.
It's amazing. So what comes after this? So like now that you got these kind of things that are going to be shipping soon, I assume. Are you guys already working on the next title? Are you guys taking a break? Like what's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the travel line goes, we have Wave 2 planned for next year. And we're actually, going back to launching multiple games in one Kickstarter. What we're starting to do now, starting with this Kickstarter, is when the Pledge Manager launches in a few months and people are going to pay for their shipping and add on whatever else they want, we're also going to introduce the option for a new game or a new add-on, essentially. And that's the third game in the travel line. That's Bombastic. We introduced it, we announced it as Tic Tac Boom, but we renamed it to Bombastic. But this is a basically a 5-player, 2-minute or 5 minutes, 2-player travel friendly game where it's basically if you played Nana or Trio, kind of a really fun, silly memory game. It's like that concept meets tic-tac-toe in a really fun way where you can play it like literally. We've played it on airplane tray tables, and like you can play it on the beach. Whereas Gazebo and Gingham would be harder to play in the sand or in the grass, literally. But with this game, you can do that. So some of our travel games are you can play them on any surface. But yeah, so we definitely have more coming in this line, both smaller and larger portable games. We also have a new line that we just barely released, our Mythos collection, specifically for 2 players, based in mythology. So Iliad and Iker are just releasing right now in the US and about to release worldwide. And we're going to launch our next wave of those games later this year. So yeah, we're doing more focused stuff within these lines, but we're also still doing, if we come across a game that doesn't fit these lines exactly, we're still going to make it if it's amazing. So
that's awesome. Well, for those who want to check this out, I am going to put a link in the show notes. Either that, or you can just I don't know if you want to put in I guess gazebos is a good way to find on Kickstarter. You can type in Bitewing. I found your portfolio there just by putting Bitewing in Kickstarter, or there'll be a link right in the show notes for people to check it out. I encourage them to check it out. It looks cool. I want to wish you all the best in this coming year. It is super exciting just to kind of vicariously kind of live through your experience here and hear how you guys are kind of building this out and kind of figuring out where your kind of go forward path is for positioning your product lineup. It's really cool to see, and the success you guys have had since we chatted so many episodes ago. It's just good to see, my friends. I want to wish you all the best this coming year.
Thanks a bunch. Thanks for having me.
All right, Nick, you take care. Cheers.
You too.
This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast. hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.